This is Hooked by Happenstance. I'm Kendra, and it is time for Chapter 11 of Yarn Tales. Yarn Tales is my ongoing series here at Hooked by Happenstance, where I read books, I tell you about them, and then I apply some silly Kendra rules to my overall rating of the book, and add a segment to my reading Shawl, which is kind of a book log of sorts that I have developed to help me put something tangible to my intangible reading. And there's a fly around you, which you may or may not see. It's finally gotten warm enough here in Kansas that the flies are back out. Hooray. So, I am glad it is getting a little bit warmer, but I could definitely do without the bugs. That is the one huge advantage of the super cold dead of winter. Alrighty, today's book is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, which was one of my most anticipated books of not only like this year, but forever. So I am a very big fan of the Vlogbrothers on YouTube, which is John and Hank Green. They have a very large internet presence. They do a vlog series called Vlogbrothers. They also own Complexly, which is a company that does things like SciShow and Crash Course and many other things. And Hank Green was the creator of VidCon, though he no longer owns that entity. So their internet presence is huge, and there is so much content and things out in the world, and they're just generally like people who are behind things that I can get behind, which I like a lot. So the lead up to An Absolutely Remarkable Thing coming out was like a really big thing in the Nerdfighter community. Nerdfighter being the name for people who are like fans of the Vlogbrothers. So this basically has been talked about for a long time. There was like a whole process, and Hank has been very like open in talking about his writing process and what was going on. The thing that like really surprises me is it took me months and months and months to get around to reading this book, and I still had not been spoiled on it. Like, how does that happen? That there's a group of people that all read a book, and you like consume content from lots of these people and still find out none of the like super secrety stuff. How? I don't know, but that's what happened for me, and it was delightful. So I will not give up any of the super secrety stuff because I don't think you have to explain just how good this book is. And I don't just like the book because I like the author. I was concerned, actually, that my expectations for the book might have been too high because I did like the author. I actually watched a talk that Hank Green gave when he was on his book tour for An Absolutely Remarkable Thing. And I got this as like a perk through a fundraiser that they hold every year called the Project for Awesome, which raises money to do awesome things. And in the talk he gave, he was talking about how you can read books and like really absorb them and enjoy them without knowing anything about the author. But what happens when you know lots about the author and then you read a book by them? Like, how does that affect things? And he was concerned in writing his first book, like, how would that affect things? And I think it definitely did affect my reading of this book, but in the best possible way. So the book, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, follows the story of a 20-something girl named April May, and she comes across this statue on the street of New York, and her friend take a video of it, turn it into a YouTube video like some people would do. And then it blows up because it turns out that these statue beings show up in 64 places around the world all at once. No one knows how they got there. Turns out, not an art installation. So it then follows all of the aftermath of what happens, or some of the aftermath. There's a sequel coming that I'm hopeful will fill in more of the aftermath, but it tells the story about what happens not only when something big like this happens on a global scale, like the statues, which would come to be known as Carls, a term coined by April May when she calls him Carl just in jest, like, hey, I'm talking to this fake being, I'm gonna refer to him as Carl, and suddenly that name sticks as the name for these beings. What happens when you're that person who gets caught up in all of this like stuff. And so it deals a lot with internet celebrity and the way that the social internet works, and the way that it works not only on like a social scale, but more importantly how it works on a personal scale, and how it affects her internally and her relationships with the people in her real life, in addition to her relationships with the larger audience. And it's a really, really interesting social commentary, and I think I really liked it because I felt like it was coming from a place of knowledge, because I did know who the author was, and I knew that they have this background. I felt like I could trust the stories that were being told, and honestly, a lot of them clearly come from a place of truth, and those you could feel, because I felt like there was the one like downfall of the book was there seemed to be a disconnect between the things that felt like taking a personal story, or a story that was personal to someone else in the author's life, and applying it to a character, and then the stuff that I felt was purely fiction. And I did feel like there was a disconnect there, and the stuff that was personal, or the stories of people that were personally connected, that stuff all just like was amazing and shown to me. And the other stuff was a little bit more eh. Now, I have listened to, after the fact, I listened to some people's reviews of it, because I was like, how have I not come across these? Like, how was this? It wasn't even a thing I was like walking around like, la la la, don't tell me about an absolutely remarkable thing. I just never found out any more about people thought. And I don't know why, but I did go and see what other people had to say. And a lot of people have talked about how April May is an unlikable character. And it's funny because that did not occur to me. Like, I don't know what that says about me if I didn't find her to be an unlikable character. I had my husbandstance Steve read the book as well after I did, and him and I have talked about it, and he found a lot of things about her to be extremely obnoxious, and I just didn't even notice them. I don't know, again, what that says about me, but it's written in the first person from April's perspective, so I think that that is why it did not bother me the way that she kind of acted, because I almost didn't see April in the book as I was reading it, and I did read this book in physical form. I read the first about 25% of it in like literally in a paper book, and then that was due back to the library, and I had taken me longer than I had hoped to get through it, just because of, I mean, the story just didn't like draw me in at the very beginning, and also just life circumstances. I didn't have a lot of time to like sit with a paper book and read, but I did then finish it in ebook through Libby, which is the reading app from Overdrive, which I subscribe to for free from my state library service. So it is all told in this first person style, and to me, I just didn't have a problem with some of the ways that April acted, because I just saw it as like she was only the narrator to me, even though I recognized that a lot of the things that were happening were being affected by her and her choices. People have a lot to say about those choices. I don't know. That part didn't resonate with me, I guess. I was more interested in how, like, the response to those choices from the other people. Again, like I say, I don't know what that says about me. That has been a thing that I have actually been thinking about. Generally, there's a lot of things about this book that have stayed in my brain, but the fact that I didn't see April as unlikable, I just didn't really even see her, seems, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it. Alright, I know that a lot of you just really want to see this shawl. That's what you're here for. So the way that I am working out my reading shawl is I have 4 different yarns. Each of them is for a different purpose. There is a yarn for books that I am reading with my children. There are books that I am getting from my Life's Library subscription service. There's physical books and there's audiobooks. So the color that I'm using for physical books, which this counts as, is Madeline Tosh Merino Silk, which is 50 silk, 50 merino in the color Flash Dance. It is this last segment here. And the way that I'm working it is everything has its own patterning row in addition to yarn style. And then I do the patterned row and then a textured row of single crochet for each star that I give the book. And I gave An Absolutely Remarkable Thing 5 stars. It was a great book. I totally recommend people read it because I think that there is just so much to consider about social spaces, both internet and interworldly, that can be learned from this book. And I had a good run. This last batch here, I had a 4-star book and then 2 5-star books in a row. So there's some nice, like, thick striping developing. I did use the end of this ball of merino silk. I had just enough. This is the end here. It's hanging off. This is what I have left. Yeah, that's it. So there's enough for me to weave in ends, and then that's about it. But overall, I am really, really happy with how the shawl is turning out. I think it's beautiful. It feels nice on. I did do this segment a couple of times. I did it once, and then I wasn't happy with how the yarn was playing, so I pulled it out, and I pulled out the segment before it, and I put them back in without as many increases, and I like the way it hung much, much better. So, yeah, I think we're reaching the end of this shawl quite rapidly. There is one more book to be added, and then I will tell you more about what is coming up. But you'll just have to wait till then. If you want to see more of the books in the Yarn Tales series, there is a playlist here on the Hooked by Happenstance channel. Also, subscribe down below so that you don't miss out on these Yarn Tales videos, because you just never know when they're going to come out. And that subscription will make it pop into your subscription feed as soon as I release it. I hope that you all are having a wonderful whenever, and I will see you next time. Bye!